And the madness continues. It is no secret that this has been one of, if not the craziest season of college football that we have ever seen. But we said that typically the month of November is the craziest month of the season by far. That's typically a yearly thing. It only took 2 days of November for that to become true for this season. We saw 7 top 25 teams go down on the first weekend of November. The 7 top 25 teams go down in week 10 of college football. 5 of those to unranked teams. 4 of those teams in the top 11. And it's fitting that all of these teams lost, and fitting that we had all this madness happen right before the first set of the college football playoff rankings that are set to be released on Tuesday. So we will see madness in those rankings on Tuesday. You will see madness in our GE Top 25, which we release on Monday before the committee even releases theirs. This season has been insane so far. Week 10, obviously fitting the theme of madness and insanity that we've seen this year. And we're here to break down everything that we saw and share our official reactions from what was, again, another fantastic weekend in college football. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad that you could join us today. As always, check out everything down in the description below, including our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to tons of exclusive content over there, including our expert picks. You notice we don't have our whiteboard up here with us. You notice we don't even have our backdrop here with us, with all the helmets and pennants that you guys have sent in, members of the GE Nation. We're in the process of moving apartments right now. I have no idea where any of that stuff is. If you could see what I'm looking at in the living room and things in front of me, it is piles and piles of boxes and junk and all that stuff. We're going to find it. We're going to find it. We're going to have a much better setup for you, hopefully in the coming days. But in the meantime, bear with us. We're going with a completely brand new apartment, bare apartment right now, which we just moved into earlier today. But we still wanted to make sure we got a recap video out for you to discuss, again, what was an absolutely insane weekend of matchups. So let's start with our recap over in Happy Valley. The game of the week, right? That was the one I think we were all excited about. Number 3, Penn State. Number 4, Ohio State. And for the 8th year in a row, Ohio State was able to pull off a victory over the Nittany Lions. And it's just heartbreaking. It's gutting for James Franklin and the Nittany Lions. They are a good team, but just not good enough. They upset Ohio State back in 2016, have not done so since. Majority of those games having been decided by one possession. This year, no exception, losing at home in front of a record crowd, 20-13. And it's heartbreaking more so, too, because if you look at how Penn State started this game, it looked like this was going to be the year. This was it. Penn State was going to finally break that streak. They jumped out to a 10-0 lead less than 10 minutes into the game, thanks to that massive pick 6 by Zion Tracy. But then they only scored 3 points the rest of the way. That's a problem. All this, speculation on whether Drew Aller was going to play or not, he might as well not have played because he didn't make any difference. He did not help Penn State in the slightest bit. The offense was atrocious. 3 red zone trips, 3 points scored on those red zone trips. Again, they did not score an offensive touchdown for the entire game. They outgained Ohio State, 358? No, sorry, they were outgained 358 to 270. And what it comes down to me is this, right? Here's what it comes down to. 2 things. Number 1, tons of credit to Ohio State and Will Howard, right? Those that early pick, you're in one of the most craziest, loudest, best crowds in college football, best environments in all of college football. You're down 10-0. Things aren't looking good, but he settled down, led back-to-back scoring drives, and it probably should have been 3 straight scoring drives had he not fumbled into the end zone, which resulted in a touchback for Penn State. Also, crazy ending later on. We'll talk about the red zone's insanity there, not just for Ohio State in the end zone, but also for Penn State. So I want to give a lot of credit to Will Howard and Ohio State for what they were able to do in terms of settling down in front of that environment, getting down double digits, not wavering, not faltering. No, we can still play our game. We've got tons of time, and being able to mount that massive comeback. Second thing, the Penn State mistakes, that's what ultimately cost them this game, right? 20-13 was the ultimate final score. They had a 1st and goal at the Ohio State 3-yard line with 11 seconds left in the first half, and then had that crazy interception in the corner of the end zone. Trying to throw a fade into the right corner, got picked off. Didn't look like it at first, reviewed it, was an interception. Just an absolute fluke thing. Should have at least gotten 3 points there, but ultimately Ohio State with the massive turnover. So again, Ohio State had that crazy turnover with the fumble in the end zone. Penn State a victim of a crazy turnover in the end zone right before halftime. Then, maybe the stand of the year. Penn State 1st and goal at the Ohio State 3-yard line with under 7 minutes remaining in the game. and Ohio State stuffed Penn State 4 times from the 3. They were on the 3-yard line, gained a couple yards, gained another couple yards. They were at the 1-yard line. Ohio State, a massive goal line stand. Penn State unable to find the end zone. Down 20-13. That would have tied the game. Who knows what would have happened over those final 5 minutes or so had Penn State scored a touchdown there. But Ohio State's defense stood tall, stuffed them 4 times in a row, and then ran out the remaining 5 minutes and 13 seconds. Gutting loss for the Nittany Lions. Massive win for Ohio State to avoid their second loss of the season. Penn State, their playoff hopes are not done. It is a one possession loss to a top 4 team in the country. More than likely, they're going to win their next couple games to finish the year at 11-1. We say more than likely, you never know. But if they do that, they will still make the college football playoff, which is the ultimate goal. But still a heartbreaking loss in a game that you can't help but feel the Nittany Lions should have won and could have easily won had they been able to limit their mistakes. How about this? A couple quick shout-outs. Number one, give shout-out to Miami. The Hurricanes down 28-17 at home to Duke in the Manny Diaz Bowl. And everybody's thinking, holy crap, Miami, they might lose at home to Duke. Are you kidding me? What is this? Manny Diaz is going to get his revenge. From the time they got down 28-17 to the end of the game, Miami outscored Duke 36-3. They went on a 36-3 run to end the game. That was a 36-3 run over the final 22 minutes to win the game 53-31. So a big win for Miami, who just continues to find ways to win as they remain unbeaten. And a big shout out to Vanderbilt. How about Clark Lee and the Commodores? They are going bowling, baby. Vanderbilt is going bowling at 6-3 in a year where the SEC is about as good as it comes. In a year where the SEC adds Texas and Oklahoma, Vanderbilt finds a way to get to 6 wins, beating Auburn on the road 17-7, 6-3 for the Commodores. Still opportunities to add to that win total. Auburn, though, I was told they were going to have a 7, 8, 9 win season. They're 3-6, and they're not going to go bowling. They have to win all 3 of their final games left. They have to beat ULM. That's easier said than done. They have to beat Texas A&M, and they have to beat Alabama. That's not happening. Auburn will miss out on a bowl game this season. I was told they were going to be elite contenders from the Auburn faithful. What say you now, Auburn fans? Please tell us down in the comments below. Please let us know what you think of your Tigers now. I'm sure next year you're going to be national champions, right? I'm sure. So big win for Vanderbilt. They're going bowling. Shout out to Oregon, number 1 team in the country, beating Michigan 38-17 in the Big House, outgaining the Wolverines by over 200 yards, 470-270. Look, it was a close game at one point, right? Oregon was only up 28-17 with about 7 minutes left in the third quarter. So Michigan was hanging around, but the Wolverines never got closer than that margin. The Ducks are now 9-0. Looks inevitable they're going to finish 12-0. Their last few games were against Maryland, Wisconsin, and Washington. So a 12-0 mark. Obviously, they feel like a lot for the college football playoff. It's just a matter of what seed they're going to get. Michigan, though, they're 5-4, reigning national champions, sitting at 5-4 in a bowl game. Far from a foregone conclusion. They have to play Indiana, Northwestern, and Ohio State. They will be underdogs against Indiana and Ohio State. So that Northwestern game, more than likely going to determine whether or not the Wolverines go bowling or not, unless they pull up a massive upset over what should be 2 top 10 teams in Indiana and the Buckeyes. So we talked about madness. There were a lot of teams that went down the top 25. 2 of those were in ranked versus ranked matchups, but there were 5 others that held to unranked opponents. We're talking about the Big 12. What's going on in the Big 12? We'll start over in Ames, where number 11 Iowa State was upset by Texas Tech 23-22. And this, to me, there were a lot of shocking results on Saturday. This was one of the more shocking in my eyes. Iowa State had been playing fantastic football. Their offense was looking really, really good. Their defense, one of the best in the Big 12. Everything was looking great. The Cyclones were a 2-touchdown favorite against a Texas Tech team that was coming off an emotional loss at TCU where they blew a 17-point lead. This seemed like a great opportunity for Iowa State to get another big win and continue to remain unbeaten and get closer and closer to the Big 12 championship game. They had 432 yards of offense in this game against the Red Raiders, and yet still found a way to lose. And really this came down to a lot of mistakes that Iowa State committed. They had a turnover on downs at the Texas Tech 24, a fumble at the Texas Tech 32, and then that was at the beginning of the third quarter. Then a missed 51-yard field goal. If Iowa State get the field goal on any one of those 3 possessions that we just mentioned, they win this game. Or at the very worst, they go to overtime, and who knows what could happen there. But Texas Tech scoring the game-winning touchdown with about 30 seconds remaining on a big-time run inside the 5-yard line. The Red Raiders just had no quit. They had no quit whatsoever, and they were taking advantage of the mistakes that Iowa State gave to them. It was gifts from the Cyclones to the Red Raiders. They were able to take advantage, and now Texas Tech sits at 6-3. Great bounce back win for them. Iowa State takes their first loss of the year. Their conference title hopes aren't over. Their playoff hopes aren't over. But I'll tell you right now, the Big 12 is BYU's for the taking, because this was a great week for BYU. The Cougars didn't play football. And their two biggest competitors in the Big 12 right now, Iowa State and Kansas State, both lost in an upset fashion, both those as double-digit favorites. Iowa State, double-digit favorites. Kansas State, double-digit favorites. Both of them lost. The Wildcats losing at Houston. Of all teams, Houston, 24-19. And this, once again, kind of like Iowa State, was a game that Kansas State gave away. And again, I'm not taking anything away from Texas Tech. I'm not taking anything away from Houston. Both of those teams deserve to win those games. There is no doubt about it. So major shout out to the Red Raiders and major shout out to Willie Fritz and the Cougars. But if you look at Kansas State, they held the Cougars to 232 yards of offense. That's it. Only 232 yards of offense. It still found a way to lose the game. They were held to a field goal from the Houston 5-yard line. They had an opportunity for another field goal early in the third quarter, but a bad snap was completely botched and got no points out of that. They threw an interception while they were up 19-10 deep in their own territory, leading to a Houston touchdown, which sparked the comeback for them. Again, up 19-10 in the fourth quarter, and still found a way to lose 24-19 against one of the worst teams in the Big 12. But you say that, and now you look at Houston's schedule, and you realize, hey, the Cougars are 4-5, already exceeding expectations in year one under Willie Fritz. They have Arizona and Baylor in back-to-back games. Both those very winnable. Houston could find themselves in a bowl game, something no one thought possible in year one under Fritz. But regardless, Houston exceeding expectations, a massive, massive, massive win for them over a top 20 opponent. Kansas State now taking their second loss of the season. I cannot for the life of me understand why they did not run the ball more and run it more effectively. Held to 89 rushing yards on the day. Houston's defense severely underrated, no doubt about that, but Kansas State should have had a much better game on the ground. I really questioned decision-making from Chris Kleiman on Saturday. But Houston, a big win for them. Kansas State, their second loss of the year, going to need some help to get back into the Big 12 championship race, and they're going to need to win the Big 12 championship if they want to make the college football playoff, because if they do not, they're not getting in. They were my preseason pick to win the Big 12. That looking like a pick that's going to be wrong by season's end. Again, this conference is BYU's for the taking. Another massive upset in the top 10. South Carolina dominating number 10 Texas A&M 44-20. Texas A&M was the lone unbeaten team in SEC conference play. Their only loss came back in week 1 against Notre Dame. But this felt like a major trap game, right? Night game in Columbia. The Aggies were only slight favorites, like a 3-point favor on the road. So that kind of told you everything you need to know. Like, hey, this is a big trap game. South Carolina, despite being at 4-3, they were a much better team than that record. They had a 3-point loss to LSU, a 2-point loss to Alabama. This was a team that at 4-3 probably should have been 6-1, or could argue was that. A&M, their best win came last week against LSU. So that was a big win for them at home against the Tigers, where they were getting dominated in the first half and then took advantage of a lot of LSU mistakes and a quarterback change to help them get that win. But who was their best win outside of that? Florida? Arkansas? No one really that noteworthy for the Aggies. They got exposed against South Carolina. Carolina jumping out to that big 14-0 lead. It was a tied game, though, 20-20 at halftime, but the Aggies shut out in the second half, outscored 24-0 in the second half. The Gamecocks outgained A&M 530-350 with 286 rushing yards on the day. The Aggies had no answer for Shane Beamer's squad and that rushing attack. That was an unbelievable win, one that could propel South Carolina into the top 25 come Tuesday for the playoff rankings, maybe Monday for us here at the GE Top 25 rankings. A&M still 5-1 in conference play, would still make the SEC championship if the season were to end today. The schedule, relatively favorable for them going forward, although they still have to play Texas, that game in College Station though. This game though, a huge blow for their playoff hopes. You know, for the Aggies to get into the college football playoff now, they're probably going to have to win the SEC championship if they can get there. They might not even get there. So a huge blow for a team that was looking great heading into this week. South Carolina exposing them on Saturday night. Louisville. Got a lot more, guys. Louisville destroying number 11 Clemson in Death Valley. So another top 11 team going down in dominating fashion. Clemson gets blown out at home. A&M gets blown out on the road. This was, to me, one of the more shocking results as well. I think if I had to pick two of the most shocking results of Saturday. It would be Iowa State losing at home to Texas Tech and Clemson losing at home to Louisville 33-21. And that's the thing, guys. It's not always the fact that a team loses that's shocking. It's how they lose that's shocking. Clemson at home in Death Valley playing lights-out football for like the last 7-8 weeks. Got blown out against Georgia, but ever since then was playing phenomenal football. We said Louisville was probably their toughest test they've seen since that Georgia game, but the Cardinals hadn't been all that impressive. They really hadn't looked that great over these last few weeks. All the more reason I thought Clemson would win this game in comfortable fashion, but they didn't. They didn't. It was a bad game. And that's the thing, right? The thing is, when you look at this game, there wasn't one thing that I thought Louisville did that was great. There wasn't one thing I thought Clemson did that was bad. If you had to pick one thing, it would probably be Clemson's inability to stop the run. Louisville had 210 rushing yards on the day, and 17 of their 33 points came from drives that began in Clemson territory. Some of that due to Clemson turnovers, some of that, or not turnovers, due to an onside kick, due to special teams, due to turnover on downs, whatever it may be. But 17 points on drives that began in Clemson territory. But neither team committed a turnover. Neither team was just extremely electric offensively. Louisville just wore down this Clemson defense, and the Louisville defense, did a phenomenal job in slowing down this Clemson offense led by Cade Klubnik. They looked unstoppable over these last few weeks. They looked mortal on Saturday. The Tigers now taking their second loss of the year, losing to Georgia, losing to Louisville, and leaves the door wide open for who could possibly play Miami in the ACC championship game, because Clemson, sure, is still a contender, but so is SMU. So is SMU, the 20th ranked team in the country that just destroyed number 18 Pittsburgh 48-25 down in Dallas. Look, I was kind of upset about this game. I was hoping this would be a fun, close, one-possession game between two top 20 teams. It was two great quarterbacks. Thought this would be a lot closer than it was. SMU dominated from start to finish. This game was over as soon as the second quarter began. 45 seconds into the second quarter, SMU scored another touchdown to go up 14-3, and if you were a Pittsburgh fan, you knew it was over. And if you're saying you didn't, you're lying to yourself. The Pittsburgh team looked emotionless. They looked unprepared. Their defense that looked phenomenal against Syracuse last week did not apparently travel with the team down to Dallas. They were missing tackles. They couldn't force a turnover to save their life. They could not do anything to get out of their own way. And this Pittsburgh offense had nothing going against this very underrated SMU defense. SMU posting 467 yards of offense. They led 31-3 at halftime. Kevin Jennings had a horrendous game last week against Duke, a game that SMU probably should have lost. Bounced back in a big way this week, going 17 for 25, 306 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's how you bounce back. That's a short-term memory quarterback. You put one bad game behind you. Don't look back in the rearview mirror. You look forward. That's what he did, and he dominated this Pittsburgh team that looked great in the secondary last week against Syracuse. Horrible on Saturday against SMU. The Mustangs are 8-1. They are 8-1 on the year. Their only loss coming to BYU early in the year. Their last 3 games of the year are against Boston College, Virginia, and California. All 3 of those teams are 4-4. The Mustangs will be favored in all 3 of those games. If they win out, they will be 11-1. They will make the ACC championship, where they more than likely will play Miami, the lastly reunion bowl perhaps. It'll be a phenomenal matchup. And even with a loss there, if they were to lose to Cam Ward and the Hurricanes, an 11-2 SMU team could still find themselves in to the college football playoff. We said they were a dark horse before the season even started. It didn't look like that was going to be the case after the first few weeks of the season. That quarterback change to Kevin Jennings changed everything for the Mustangs. They were looking phenomenal, and they looked all the part as an elite contender with their dominant win over Pittsburgh, who I can tell you right now will fall out of our GE Top 25 on Monday. So guys, there you have it. That was a long recap, but rightfully so, considering the madness we just witnessed in Week 10. Again, that was just the first weekend of November. Imagine what's going to happen over the next, 4 weekends? We have 4 weekends of the regular season remaining, then conference championships, then the postseason. So much football left to be played, so much madness to be had. This has been a phenomenal season, a season where anything can truly happen, a thing where you just throw all your notes and all your research out the window because you never know what's going to happen on any given Saturday, and that's how we like it. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Thank you for bearing with us with our completely bare wall and Bear studio, I guess I should say. Hopefully things will get better over these next couple days, but we do appreciate you and all of your support. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below. We do not want you to miss out on any of our exclusive content. Do not want you to miss out on our expert picks. Again, the website over on thegridironexpert.com has all of that for you. Go sign up today. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.